I am Jake. And I'm Michael. And we interviewed 10 people that were in the war. There were four kids that were just kids in America. And we interviewed one person that was in London. And 3 people in Germany. And 1 American night fighter pilot. And 1 flight nurse. Frank Gilbert was a night fighter pilot.
This is the P-61, called the Black Widow. She's well named because she packs 4 caliber 50 machine guns and 4 20mm cannons. An obituary notice goes with each fight.
The biggest targets were flying at night, going over a marshalling yard for the railroads. And I would go into those targets and with my cannons and my machine guns blasting away, could destroy all kinds of locomotives, rail cars.
When the war started, I was 9 years old. When the war ended, I was 16 years old.
Did you ever see Hitler?
I saw him one time. That was a real thing, 1936. It was a big fuss. He went along the ring, which is a circle around the intercity of Cologne, in his car, and there were all the street cars parked on that truck. They were all dressed up in everybody waiting. And then all the thing I saw was the guy going by in a car.
I was taking care of the wounded, get them on the plane in different areas, and take them to a hospital closer to where they lived. All the chairs were taken out, and they had stretchers all along where there was a seat. They had a stretcher there, so we had to go up and down the aisle and see what they wanted. Gosh, and one time if there was a hole, I would have gone through it. I used to go around and tickle their feet, and I was ready to tickle this young man, and he said, "You won't find anything there." Oh, my heart dropped. So I had to change the subject.
When the war started, we were all living in London. The bombing was every day, all night long, every day. About 2 or 3 weeks after the war was declared, we had a German bomber came over and bombed a school near us. And there were a lot of children killed.
I was serving on an anti-aircraft battery, which was stationed on the south end of Cologne. I was afraid when they opened up their bombing cases and dropped their loads on us.
There were bomb shelters, and actually there were 3 kinds of bomb shelters. There was a public shelter, and that public shelter was a shelter that had been built on the street where people used to leave their houses and go at night time and stay there. They were made of very heavy concrete. There were also shelters that you could have in the house, or just outside the house. One of those was called an Anderson shelter, which was in the garden, in the yard, and it was built, dug into the ground, and it was covered with dirt and sandbags. There was one inside the house, steel table. Most everybody had that in their living rooms because that was big enough. And you used to get under there, and that was supposed to, if then the building collapsed, would stop it from collapsing on you.
We had to, when we had the alarm, everything was dark, and you were huddling up, hoping that nothing happens. We were in the country, in the big towns. You had it even worse. They would bombard, and the worst was the phosphor bombs. You could run in the streets because the streets were boiling, because of that.
Children in World War II. What did you do for fun during the war?
Everything you do. We played baseball, we kicked horseshoes, we went fishing, we went hunting, swimming, camping.
Everyone would gather around the radio and turn it on. And we would sit in the dark and listen to the radio. I used to like that because we would sit in there and the only lights would be the green and red lights on the radio. I thought that was fun.
We learned about the difference between America and England, and the differences were, in England they were worried about bombs and all of the children, so they sent them all away.
Decided all the children should be evacuated from London. On a certain day, everybody was told to be out on the street with what clothes they needed, and we were all marched off with my mother crying, and we were marched off to trains, and these trains took us out into the countryside, away from London. We were taken to a big camp, and all of my school was there, and we were settled in at the school.
The bombing during the war on the German cities, particularly the ones that were industrialized, was day and night. And someone was smart enough to figure out that we probably should get the younger generation out of the big cities so they wouldn't all get killed along with everyone else. So they took all us little kids and sent us out into farming communities. And I wound up in a little farming community with a friend of mine. I guess when I got there I was 4.
And in America, we were worried about diseases like polio and if we're going to get all we could eat and everything. So there was a big difference and all, because there were a bunch of kids in England shipped off and all, but here just like, you can stay where you are and the war didn't affect us as bad.
You know, they were over there, and to a little Kansas farm girl, that was something over there, you know, and you didn't think about it. You just practiced the piano, milked the cows, and went to school. And that was about it.
Circulation of polio and polio fundraising was we lived in Greenville, South Carolina, and they had the March of Dimes. And on one side of Main Street, they started a dimes laid end to end all the way down Main Street of Greenville for raising money.
There was a shortage of everything. To be fair, the government issued ration stamps, and you had to have so many ration stamps to get for sugar, so many for shoes, so many for gas.
After the war started, if you wanted to have a victory garden in your yard, if you signed up, they would send around a group of people free of charge that would plow up your garden for you.
People traded these stamps to get what they need. Like if your child needed a pair of shoes, you would trade somebody some sugar and gas stamps, and you would take their shoe stamps to get, and the reason there was a shortage of these things, it was all being used for the soldiers that were overseas fighting.
Praise the Lord.